Hey, welcome to Bluejay Banter, live right here on our YouTube channel. We're live right here from Let It Fly Sports Bar in downtown Omaha. Thanks for joining us. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like button. It helps us out a lot. We're sponsored by West Pacific Dental Group and Infusion Brewing Company. A lot of stuff to cover, but we want to jump right into our in-house guest tonight, assistant coach for Creighton, Derek Kellogg. Coach, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm feeling great. What a electric game and atmosphere on Saturday. You know, I tell some of my coaching friends back home or across the country, when a big game like the Iowa game or the Alabama game, it's like a Final Four atmosphere. Not only in the arena, but also everything leading up to it when you walk around downtown Omaha and the people kind of parading through the restaurants and bars and whatever else it might be and kind of coming over to the arena. It's really a special place in the college basketball world.
Yeah, there was a buzz Saturday, and there'll be one on Wednesday night, too, before the first Big East game, Villanova, because that's such a crucial game to get off to a great start in the Big East. Alabama. So what were your takeaways from the game?
Well, first of all, it was great to have a hard-fought game where you maybe didn't do some of the things you normally do well and still come away with a win against maybe one of the more talented teams in the country, top to bottom. I thought 1 through 8 or 9, they had some not only really, really good college players, but some guys that will eventually move on and play in the NBA. And so to get them on our home court, to do some things, especially there in the second half, to come away with a win, I think it shows the character of our team, kind of the ability to have some toughness when the game's on the line, and coachability. I thought our guys executed Coach Mack's game plan coming out of timeouts as good as they've done all year.
What do you think the overall key was?
Well, they were playing an analytics game, probably as strong as any team in the country as far as how many threes they shoot, trying not to give up some different things. And I thought us getting to the free throw line and making those free throws was the key, because we didn't exactly, say shoot the ball so well or didn't do rebounding on the defensive end of the floor. But to get to the free throw line, to play a physical kind of style of basketball and make those free throws, I thought, and then, like I mentioned, execution, not only out of timeouts, but some of the plays that Coach had put in leading up to the game. I thought we executed and did a good job coming away with a win.
Coach, have you, leading up to this point, obviously first Big East game in 2 days here, have you had a chance, obviously as a coaching staff, you're always basically focused on the team, right ahead of you from a scout, watching a lot of their games. Have you had a chance to watch a lot of these other Big East programs play in non-conference, and what are some takeaways if so?
Oh, totally. And because there's, different places there's not as much turnover or new coaches, most of them have done the same thing year after year. Even Villanova, not only in Kyle's tenure, but also Jay Wright's, they're kind of playing the exact same way with the same blueprint. Different pieces, different guys do things well. So, I watch the Big East religiously. I've done it for, 30 years now. Some of the teams have changed, but I think the level of play, the talent, and what the guys are trying to do is pretty similar. And, like I've mentioned a few times, I've also coached against some of those guys as an assistant or a head coach. So I'm familiar with, Shaka and Sean and Miller and some of those other guys. Danny, not only did I coach against them, I played against them.
Yeah.
So, it's a great, well-coached league with a lot of really good teams and talented. I mean, you talk about Villanova, some of the pieces they've added from last year, and the talent from 1 to 8, 1 to 9 is as good as any team in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is assistant coach Derek Kellogg, his first year at Creighton, and we want to get kind of to your stop. So can you kind of just go through obviously you played at UMass, but kind of go through your coaching stops along the way for people that don't know?
Absolutely. I've been really fortunate to be a head coach for a long time, but also work for some really good coaches and mentors. John Calipari, number one, I played for him in college. I spent a lot of time with him at Memphis. Culminating in the 2008, national championship loss. But I also worked for Jim Larinaga for 2 years, right out of college, and then John Robick at Youngstown State for 8 months. Then from 2008, I was at UMass, and then I was a head coach from 2008 till 2022 or whatever the year might be. So about 14, 15 years there, and then last year I got to spend another great year with another high-level coach, Frank Martin, who. It's great. I've learned all sorts of different styles, and then I get an opportunity to work with Coach Mack, who I've always admired from afar. I always watched his teams play and marveled at their pace and tempo and how they worked on the offensive end of the floor. And even when we coached against them in Vegas a few years back, by the way, I think we lost by 22. So it's really nice to work for a lot of really good coaches that have different styles, different personalities, and see what different things can work, and hopefully because my stops along the way, I can bring some value to the table.
Sure.
Maybe it's just one play here or there, something I see during a game that can be helpful. The margin for error, obviously, at this level is kind of small. So if it's one or two things every game that I could put together and send it over to him that he looks at, that might be helpful.
So we're going to kind of go down memory lane. I know Ross has got a bunch of questions. Let's start out with you playing at UMass.
Yep, that was how many years ago? Well, it's funny because
a couple years ago, right? Just a couple.
Yeah, well, like God rest his soul, Eric Montrose, to see him pass away.
Yeah,
we played against him a couple times in college, and I was at UMass from 1991 to 1995, and had some great teams. We were number one in the country for 2 straight years. We went to the Final 8 my senior year, and then they went to the Final 4 that following year. We went 4 straight Atlantic 10 championships and titles. Played with Marcus Camby and Lou Rowe and Donta Bright and Edgar and Carmelo. A lot of really, really good basketball players, but good people. Kind of reminds me somewhat of how we have it here, where I think it was a very good culture and everybody was bought into team basketball and trying to have the program win. And I was fortunate to play for Coach Calipari, and then later be able to work with him. And I thought that was, when you can, I guess, attach to somebody like him early on in your career and kind of have that success, that's very helpful, obviously.
I'm kind of curious, Coach. Obviously you've been a head coach for many, many years and a high-level assistant, and now you're back on the bench as an assistant coach at a Big East program. What are maybe some positives, some negatives, some just, I guess, kind of core differences between being kind of the head honcho and making all the decisions and being an assistant now?
Well, the one thing that's amazing and you take for granted is just to be back at the big time, per se, or where people care.
Sure.
I've been at some different places along the way where you're coaching, you're obviously engaged and you're doing your job and really enjoying it, but you're also not really there. You're kind of like trying to get there. And to be back at a program that is, ranked where we are with the type of people we have, the culture that is here in a major city that really loves the game and backs the team. It reminds me a lot of when we were at Memphis before the Grizzlies came.
Sure,
a city that's basketball driven. So, that's fantastic. The things that when you're an assistant you don't have control over is you're not really making those decisions that, you're trying to help somebody make the decisions, which, sometimes after you've been at it for a while, that's actually not a bad thing to do, is to kind of learn a little bit and get better and try to help out somebody else like Coach McDermott. There's obviously positive and negatives in anything you do in life, and it's all how you look at it. To me, I feel fortunate that I'm still at this level coaching at a program like this and trying to help win a national championship.
So Marcus Camby. So remember back the first time you laid eyes on, how quickly was it when you said, well, this dude's going places?
It took a couple days. Even Derrick Rose took a couple weeks. So,
yeah.
It was just, you have this 7-foot guy walking around UMass's campus, and you really don't know what to expect, because we were a really, really good team. We went to the NCAA tournament 2 straight years, lost in the Sweet 16 my freshman year. But then you add a potential player of the year, and all of a sudden you go from being a really good regional team that can get to an NCAA tournament to a team, we can win a national championship. One of the greatest shot blockers I've seen, like defensively, a lot like the way Kolkbrenner is able to, manage the rim and kind of make shots really hard. But his was more shot blocking, where now in college basketball it's more, rim protection and verticals and things of that nature. But, we'll play a team like Princeton at home and they're backdooring you, and next thing you know, the ball's bouncing off the side of the backboard and we're going the other way. And then, him and Lou Rowe, who played together, was probably the best front line in college basketball for 2 straight years. Lou gave, Kansas and Carolina and Arkansas, 35 and 15, while Camby's the best player in the country. So it was a good, fun run. And to play with a guy who ends up, being defensive player of the year in the NBA, playing for 17 years and all that is, hopefully there's a piece that you could say you helped him get there.
Yeah. When you were an assistant, kind of in that same vein, when you were an assistant at Memphis, you play in this, kind of now famous national title game. Do you ever look back and look at the talent in that game? There were some serious players that played in that national title game, and obviously, kind of an iconic shot. Unfortunately, you're on the losing end of. But do you ever just think back to that game and think, oh my God, I can't believe I was a part of that?
Oh, all the time. Not only that game, but in it was like the first time I think ever in a long time that all 4 number 1 seeds advanced to the Final 4.
That's right.
And our game before that, we're playing UCLA, and they have Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook. And I'm like, 2 top 50 maybe players of all time, and then we have Derrick Rose and Dorsey and some other guys, and Darrell Arthur and Chalmers and all those guys, and I forget who else was in that Final 4. But it was, when you look back in the first round, there was probably 14 guys drafted out of that Final Four, or 11, something along those. So it was amazing. It was an amazing run.
So we're going to get to coaching with him. But what was it like playing for Coach Kellogg, especially back in those days when, he was fairly new on the scene, relatively speaking?
Well, all I'll tell you is after the first day of practice that I ever had at UMass, nobody could walk home. I think it took us to get from where we played in the Cage back then, which was a 3,000-seat arena or 4,000-seat, and to get from there to what's called Southwest, which is 5 26-story towers. It was probably a half a mile. And it might have taken us, 45 minutes to walk there. It was one of those 3 hours, wall sits, defensive slides, just one of those fun old school practices. And then what happens is you start recruiting guys like Cam B and some of those higher level guys, and you pull it back. So, for instance, you had to do 20 135-pound, bench presses before your first practice, and 20 dips and 15 pull-ups. And then Marcus Camby came. That ended.
And he couldn't do it. Yeah.
Or the 2020s, those ended too. So I think we all get better with age and realize. And then Cal went to the NBA and came back to Memphis, and the practices were a little less collegey and more NBA style, which I think everybody's evolved now, and less of the grind and more of like, I don't want to say management, but making sure the bodies are fresh and the minds are fresh by the end of the year. And then making sure that the kids, you have to come and enjoy it in this day and age too. I think the kids got.
Was he as active at UMass on the sidelines as he is at was at Memphis?
Oh, way more. he was young and feisty back then. You don't remember him and John Chaney?
Oh yeah.
Well, I remember that.
So, no,
that was after the game.
Exactly. No, Cal was definitely feisty in his younger days. Working 5-star in the summer and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it was a good experience for me. I learned a lot, and we have a very good relationship, and we're family and lifelong friends.
What was the deal there with Chaney? That was bizarre.
What happened was that they had beaten UMass 30 straight times, or I think it was like 12 straight times, and all of a sudden here comes this young, hot shot from Pitt, and then we get really good, and then we beat them 11 straight times. And you're talking, they're number 8 in the country, and we're number 4.
John didn't like to lose.
John did not like to lose, and so I think he just. It just boiled over a little bit.
Yeah. And if you're young, and Temple now is not what Temple was back then. I mean, they were legitimate.
Temple was
serious program.
And that team that year, people don't realize. You got Rick Brunson, Jalen's dad, who's playing. And then you had Eddie Jones, who played for the Lakers and won an NBA championship, and Aaron McKee, who played.
Oh, they were loaded every year.
Your 1, 2, 3 is probably as good as any 1, 2, 3 in the last however many years, except for a few of those.
I kind of looked at it like. Remember the day when DePaul was on national TV every stinking weekend, I mean, they were loaded, and then they kind of faded. I kind of looked at it like Temple kind of took over for them for that niche, When you're talking about that national championship game, that was a year, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys struggled at the line, right?
Yes.
But in the tournament, you were crazy good at the line all the way up until like the last minute and a half of the last game.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you make 2 free throws, I mean, it was almost like a perfect storm had to happen, and it did.
Right.
That's why the game's never over until it's over.
Right.
And we saw that at the Alabama game the other night when the ball. Well, you know what? Sometimes you just need some luck on some of those plays. I felt like when we played out in Vegas, and I don't want to talk about too much, but I felt like the guy was shooting hook shots that were hitting the bottom of the rim and rolling over.
Oh,
the
they
top.
had probably a dozen shots that bounded around. And
I've never seen anything like that. And then, so sometimes the basketball gods come back and give you one back, and so maybe they owe us one more after how many of those ones the guys.
Yeah, that picture. If you haven't seen it, you got to go on the internet and see that picture. That ball's like 3/4 of the way down into the basket, and it spun out.
Mark Sears a shot.
Yeah.
I love the spin he put on it to just kick it on out of there.
What's the biggest thing you took away from Cal as an assistant coach?
Well, there's a lot, obviously, but I felt just the way that he was able to engage a community and market his program, and then he then carried that into recruiting, and so that was kind of one big ball of everything. And the tough thing is that not everybody can do everything that somebody else does. So even though you want to market your program and do it all like him, he has a gift. He's really good at it, and so when you become a head coach or you're doing your own thing, you could take pieces of that, but you also have to be your own person. And so I felt like that was something that would be important as younger coaches move on to work for people, take the great stuff from them, and then try to be their own.
Sure.
And kind of do what's best for their personalities.
I heard like stories like when, and this was more when he was at Kentucky. He would go into a neighborhood to recruit a kid, and all the kids in the neighborhood were like, "Oh my God, Coach Cal is," and they just all swarm his car. It's like unbelievable.
Well, I wasn't with him at Kentucky, but we had some good stories in Memphis.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, what was it like? Because Memphis was just Memphis, and now, still to this day, I think people look back on that time at Memphis. What was it like building that thing?
Well, I thought Memphis was one of those places that was kind of a hidden gem per se, because it's a major city like Omaha. It has basketball crazy fans who would come to the games, and they also had a lot of players there, which makes it even easier. So when we would go into either a high school or into the neighborhood to go either recruit a kid or spend some time, like, get out of the way. Tiger coaches are here. Get out of the way. And we didn't get every kid out of Memphis, but we got enough to be successful. And then we were able to pluck a few guys here and there nationally to kind of fill in with some Memphis kids. I don't think you can always have a whole team full of guys from one place, especially when they're right in that city.
Yeah, that's probably not good.
Yeah, then you got the politics, you got people around and stuff. So I thought we did a very good job early. Our team was mostly all Memphis kids when we took over, and then we were able to kind of add some players from around the country. And I thought that was a good mix of players and different styles, and we put together a nice team with a good 3, 4, 5 year run.
Yeah. Last question I have. You've obviously been around a lot of high-level guys, NBA guys for a long time. What is it? What are some things about kind of our core guys, Baylor, Trey, Kalk, that you think could maybe set them up for success at the next level?
Well, the greatest thing for all three of those guys, you could kind of loop them together if you really want to, that they're all amazing kids. They're sponges on and off the court. Their character is not questioned. And the game has now changed that fits how they play. It's predicated now on skill work and being able to shoot and handle the ball. We even saw Ryan against Loyola Chicago make 5 threes at 7-1. So I think all three of those guys have a unique talent that translates to the NBA, whether it's winning. Like, they're all winners.
Right.
Winners on and off the court. They're all guys that give up a little bit of themselves for their teammates. And if you watch the NBA game now, we play like an NBA team as far as how coach schemes our offense, how he schemes our defense.
Spacing.
Yeah, and so I think that gives those guys a little bit of an advantage versus some college teams that still run, a set every time down or have some different style. So all three of those guys are going to have a great opportunity to play professionally. And the good thing is, because of the type of people that they are, they have a chance to play for a long time.
Yeah.
And get that second contract and a third contract. And so, team success, rising tide lifts all boats. And as we keep winning and doing things, I think it's good for everybody.
What's the keys to the game Wednesday?
Well, they're Villanova. They're going to play the way they always play, which is kind of bully ball in the post, make you have to guard.
They've always kind of tried to dictate tempo against us, too.
You're right. And, they shoot 33s a game, so they're playing the analytics game. They get to the free throw line. They make almost as many free throws as their team takes, their opponents take, just like Alabama. They just do it a little differently than Alabama, a little less, say, bounce and athleticism, but more like brawn and kind of get you inside. So if we can guard them around the rim, make them take some contested threes, and then get out and transition ourselves. And listen, we play great also when we're making some shots. Yeah. So when the ball goes in, we can set our defense. I think the crowd gets into it. We get confident, and I feel like we got some of the best shooting offensive players. Mason Miller's rated the #1 offensive efficient. I don't know how that
he shot the ball really well.
Nah, he's such. You know what? He's another guy that fits in that mold of a kid who, he gets in the gym after practice every day. All the guys do, but he does get in there and works, and he works at a high speed and high pace. And so it's nice to see him and guys like Steven and them always in the gym shooting and getting better. So I think we got a little bit of a growth curve too. There's a couple guys that are starting to get it a little bit. The Freds, the Isaacs are coming along. Mason's picked up his pace. And because we can space the floor with some of those shooters, there's not many guys they can, say, fluff off of and not cover. So I think it's a recipe for having a good offensive performance.
Do you think the fact that Isaac's aboard this year really is helping Mason, because it's kind of like pushing him every day in practice and just, because they're both sharing time on the floor, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think it's helping Isaac to go against Mason sometimes in practice. Yeah. More often than not, they're kind of on the same team, but they're rotating in and out. And I think one thing anybody can learn from Mason is, if you watch the game, he's not always, but most of the time, the hardest cutter we have. He runs with pace.
Yeah.
And that opens the floor up for the other guys. And I think if we can get Isaac to move a little bit more with pace and continue to improve laterally. His curve from when he came here to where it is now has been exponential. Like, he's done a great job of getting better to where you can get him on the floor. He played great against Nebraska. He's rebounded the ball a little better. He always makes threes. Now some of the nuances, if he picks those up, we have a chance.
Right. What I liked the last game was I saw a little flash of it. What we saw last year was Mason coming in, getting those offensive rebounds because he can sprint in from the wing or the corner where he is, and that was a big factor last year to keep possessions alive.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge when you shoot the deep ball. There's going to be a lot of long rebounds. I think Mason and probably Baylor and Trey, when he's in that position to go rebound, track the ball down as good as anybody. But it was nice to see Mason. He got us a couple against Alabama. And you know what happens when you get a loose ball? You dive for a loose ball or get a rebound or defend and chest somebody up. And next time down, the ball seems to go in the basket. So if you can get your mentality to be, I'm going to be a killer on the defensive end of the floor. I'm coming up with every loose ball and loose rebound. Then all of a sudden, you're not thinking so much about scoring, and the ball seems to go in the basket.
A couple last things. Call, how's he doing? Was he practice today?
He was there, hanging out.
Working out?
No, he wasn't really working out. He was hanging out.
Okay.
We're still kind of waiting on him and Trey. Trey got hit pretty good in that last game. And so we'll see tomorrow. I mean, today was kind of a rest day for the two of them. Everybody this time of year gets a little, sick. I don't want to say sick, but, there's some stuff going around all through the area. Sure. So we're fighting that like everybody else in the country. But, from top to bottom, we're in pretty good shape. We'll just see how and if those guys progress a little bit tomorrow.
What got any thoughts on Doug's jersey being retired? And, it's going to be interesting to see Coach Mack this week,
Well, I'm new here. I don't know about all that. I do know, watching from wherever I was at the time, a guy scoring 3,000 points or whatever it is in college is just unheard of. And, it's special that a coach can coach his son and have that kind of success. I've seen coaches where it's really hard because your son's on the team and hasn't, but to have a guy be National Player of the Year and score 3,000 points, I mean, it's a memory that Coach Mack and his family and his kids can have to just say how special that really is. So I'm looking forward to seeing the reception, and then, it'll be like no other because of the way Creighton fans are.
No kidding. Last one. So obviously coached all those years at UMass and so forth, played there. Any special place you're looking forward to going to in the Big East this year?
Yeah, lots of them. There's a few places I have a little revenge, and there's a few places I just like to go. So, the one cool thing is my wife and son are still in Massachusetts. He started his freshman year. It's kind of a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have them come to
That'll
a few
be
games.
great.
Yeah. In a weird way, I feel a little like, when I'm in the crowd and there's 18,000 people screaming and haven't been able to see a home Creighton game yet. I was on the phone FaceTime with them today, and I'm like, you guys have to see what this is like really about.
Sure.
Even on television, it doesn't do it justice.
No.
It's like chills down your spine when they're doing the intros and the people are cheering and stuff. So it's cool.
Coach, awesome.
Thanks, maybe
man.
St. John's. I'll get some pizza while I'm up there. Huh?
Yeah.
You guys are in the Garden too.
We are in the Garden.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Hit me up. I'll show you some spots. Good pizza spots
for the Big East.
Absolutely.
We got to get ready.
Absolutely.
There we go. Thanks, Coach. Really appreciate
your
assistant coach Derek Kellogg, and it's sponsored by Infusion Brewing Company. Sponsor here at Bluejay Banter on our Monday show. Fantastic array of beers all over the place. We had to have a celebratory Let It Fly the other night. Of course, they're the makers of the Let It Fly, the famous Let It Fly beer. And they got a lot of great holiday beers as well. We've mentioned them several times. They've got some peppermint concoctions and some vanilla beans and so forth. So check them out, Infusion Brewing. Two great locations, one in Benson and then one down in Papillion. So check them out. That's infusionbrewing.com. I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet since the Alabama game.
Yeah,
What'd
awesome
you think?
game. I mean, it was a ton of fun. I thought that place was, it's funny. I got a text from somebody saying that they were rewatching the game, and the Fox announcers had mentioned something in the first half about how they were a little bit surprised at how quiet the crowd was. But I remember thinking back.
I saw that part too when I watched the replay.
I didn't really, especially the second half. I thought the crowd was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm always first in line to criticize.
Me and you, we're all over it.
Criticize the crowd, but I thought it was really, really good the other night. I had a blast. I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, I think there's, I don't know, maybe they took on the one time where Mac really got in the first half, got into get the
Sure.
crowd up. Maybe that was it. I don't know. But I never thought it really got all that quiet in there at any one point.
Neither did I.
You know, obviously a lot of times with our teams in the past, we've had those huge runs where and I thought it was really interesting. Oates knew that, and that run was not very long, and man, he ran out to center court and called the timeout when Call got that dunk because the crowd just went ballistic at that point.
I thought, I mean, I didn't know anything. I was sitting where I was sitting, and I didn't know anything about Call. You know, when you see, you know, we've dealt with injuries with him in the past, obviously, so he goes back and then he doesn't come out for a bit. You're kind of thinking, oh my God, here we go. So when he came back, you know, he really changed a lot of things. I mean, they had a lot of, obviously it's not a secret, they've got a lot of very athletic guys, and you know, they were able to throw lobs up at the rim, and some of these guys were catching them and really kind of tearing down the rim, and that didn't happen so much when Call came back. So happy Call came back. Hopefully he and Trey are going to be okay and healthy for Wednesday. But yeah, I thought it was a great game.
Yeah. Call was with us after the game on Saturday. He was in a boot, but you know, he didn't give any indication that he wouldn't be ready to go. I mean, obviously it all depends on that next day, right?
Yeah.
How much it swells, how much discomfort there is, and you know, they're going to take it pretty easy and slow with him. The only good thing, I guess, if you're looking at, you know, the whole big picture, is they have 10 days off after this, so he can really get healthy before we get into the meat of the Big East season. And it's the same way with Trey as well. Trey didn't show a whole lot of effects to the. Sounds to me they didn't say, the coach didn't say, but maybe there's something to do with concussion protocol and that sort of thing too.
Sure.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm just speculating, but you know, he did get hit in the face pretty hard.
Yeah, that was a tough hit he took.
Yeah,
I was impressed with. I thought Steven played well. I thought Baylor. I mean, I think Baylor has been really, really good this year.
Oh, he's been great.
I mean, I thought you know, Mark Sears is an unbelievably talented player. Obviously Grant Nelson's a very good player.
I thought he did a great job, and he still got 19.
Yeah, exactly. I thought Baylor was the best player on the floor.
Yeah,
I
agree.
You know,
Totally agree.
Everything that he does, everything that he brings. Yeah, I'm really glad we have him on our team.
And we got the old Trey back too.
Yeah,
he was knocking down.
Trey was
shots,
great.
You know,
Trey was great. Yeah, it was a great game. Hopefully, same sort of energy with the crowd Wednesday night, which I'm assuming it will be, because this is, you know, so we have 10 days and then to Marquette, right?
Yeah, at Marquette. So tough start. So, you know, if you're looking, you know, kind of at the schedule like we do at the beginning of the year, picking wins and losses, you certainly got to go 1-1 here to get off to the start. Because then we got after
absolutely.
that, then we go right to, I believe we go right to Georgetown after that game.
Georgetown after Marquette.
I don't think we're going to come because they play the 30th and they play again the 2nd, and then we come home the following weekend for Providence. So.
I can't believe conference play is already here. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I can't believe that.
There's been a little sprinkling, obviously, of some teams, and now everybody's going to get full bore into it, especially after the first of the year. I don't know, with the Big 12 expansion, I would think they're going to be playing games this week. I didn't even look, but they've got to be getting into it as well, because they've got probably a lot more games this year. You know, they've already
started. I think. I mean, this past weekend. I mean, you had Houston play Tech. Never mind. Texas A&M's in the SEC.
It's so hard to keep track, isn't it?
Yeah.
All those Texas teams and so forth. Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, we're certainly going to need those guys. I have not watched a ton of Villanova this year. Obviously, you're familiar with the same old names, right? The guys have been there for 10 years. But what have you seen?
Really very similar to what Coach Kellogg said. They're essentially the exact same team. I mean, they're the same team that they were under Jay Wright. They're, you know, people kind of wonder how in the world have they lost to some of these Big Five teams. The variance in the games that they play throughout the season is going to be really large because they take so many threes. And just by nature, law of averages, law of numbers, they're going to have games where they just can't make anything. And that's happened to them a couple of times. When you take that many threes, they kind of do, you know, they don't run a lot of set plays. They like to get into kind of their initial action, have guys, you know, try and take you into the post, maybe draw another defender, kick out for threes. I mean, they take a lot of contested threes, which is quite honestly what they did a lot of and they had Jay Wright too.
Yeah.
Obviously you look around the NBA now, and there's a lot of Villanova players. I mean, they recruited at a really, really high level there for a few years when they were winning a couple of national titles. So they still got some really good players. Obviously, Justin Moore and Eric Dixon, Hakeem Hart came over from Maryland. They've got a good team. It's going to be a tough game. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I think the good thing too is that we have been this last game, we worked so hard to contest those threes for Alabama, B, run them off the line when we could. And I think it's going to be easier for the group to kind of get into that mode again where, it's kind of good that we're playing a team like Villanova again. It's an easy scout defense, not easy, but a smoother transition scout with Villanova.
Yeah, you know what you're getting. It's just
plus the same kind of defense we want to play. We don't want to give them threes, and we want to run them off the three if we can.
Right. Yeah, it's a call. Being healthy makes a world of difference, I think, against the team, really against any team. I mean, the luxury, it cannot be overstated. Like when you're a guard and what you're trying to do defensively, the luxury that you have when you've got Kellogg standing back there at the rim. You know what I mean? You just feel more comfortable pressuring. You just feel more confident in what you're doing. So I'm hoping. Sounds like he'll be okay, but we could use a healthy Kellogg.
What are your thoughts about Doug's jersey being retired? Guy who played with Doug, guy who knows Doug well.
I kind of like.
Other than the fact that
who said Kellogg?
You got the jersey. You're the guy who got the jersey retired. Other than that, what do you?
I'm kind of shocked at what it wasn't already.
But
then I thought back to it and I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense. I would have known about it and I would have been at it. So it's really special deal.
I think there
for
was
him.
like an unwritten rule, like, okay, we're not gonna use three.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Really special deal for him. I mean, I'm trying to think if he's even been back to a home game since. I mean, obviously, there's not very many opportunities for him to do so. When you're playing in the NBA, I'm trying to think if he's even been back to one since he graduated.
The last time I heard Mac talk about it, he was saying, a lot of the times it's the schedule; it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then he mentioned, was it last year, or the year before? There was an All-Star break, and he's like, "Hey, Doug, you should come back." And Doug is like, "Yeah, I'm in Arizona or San Diego or somewhere.
I'd rather go play golf."
Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously he's been to a couple of away games. I mean, I was at the Texas game in Austin with him last year, but it just it just got to fit the schedule. So it'll be cool. I'm really kind of curious. I'm curious since they're doing all of the stuff pregame, how many people are actually going to be in the seats pregame or not.
I think we've done our best here to tell everybody to get there on time.
But you know how it is though.
Yeah,
it's people trying to get there and get in the seats.
I'm actually going to be in the club section, so it'll be interesting.
Okay.
I'll be able to get a sense about 7:15. Okay, are people checking out of here and starting to move around and get ready to go down their seats and so forth? That you can kind of tell. Those times when you're in the club and you look up and everybody's like, "Oh my God, the game's starting!" and they're racing out.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I would almost treat it like tip is at. In your mind, you should almost treat it, if you're a fan, tip is at 7:15.
Yeah, right.
I want to be in my seat
because
ready to go at 7:15. Because
like
realistically,
I said, everybody's going to come at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Realistically, you don't want to be, stuck trying to get through security at like 7:30, 7:35.
Car traffic, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, absolutely. So again, we'll just repeat it one more time. Game's at 8:00. The ceremony is going to be at 7:40. So like Ross said, you really want to be in the building by 7:15. Get any refreshments or food you're going to get in your seat so you're ready to go at 7:40 because they're not going to delay that or, it's probably going to go like clockwork right on time because obviously they want to get the ceremony done with. Mac's got to get back in the locker room before the game. I'm sure they've already discussed it with Villanova that, hey, you got to be off the floor at 25 till, then we'll let you come back out again and warm up and so forth. So make sure you get your gang together and make sure everybody knows to be in your seat 7:40 because you're not going to want to miss. This is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, obviously. Kind of like Doug's senior night is a once-in-a-lifetime deal to see him say goodbye. And you're going to have a chance to see him again here on Wednesday night. And then, like I said, let's put it all out there because we got a nice break ahead of us.
Yeah, seriously.
Where we don't have any great basketball.
Right.
With the exception of the women. who will play at Sokol on Thursday night against South Dakota State.
They played Drake yesterday? Is that right?
They beat Drake yesterday, yes, and they'll play South Dakota State, so they can go into the holiday break as well. They also start back up on the 30th. So nice. It'll be a nice finish for them to go through this whole stretch with only 2 losses. Be great start to the season. Since we were last week, they lost a tough game to Marquette. Man, it was on. If you come here to Let It Fly, you can see any game in the world, and they had both the games up side by side, so they're able to watch both Creighton games at the same time. It was awesome, and it was just a tough back and forth. It just didn't have some shots, like Max says all the time. So the shots just don't go in, and at the end of the game, those shots just weren't dropping, and that was kind of the difference at the end of the game. But I thought, watching that game, it's not like, oh man, Marquette's light years ahead of us, and we're right there. We're probably the better team for a good chunk of that game. So I think
is it kind of same old deal with UConn women this year? Is everybody kind of fighting for second place? Does it appear that way?
Yes and no. I think Paige is playing a lot better right now. She kind of had a little bit of a swoon there for a little bit, but
Paige Beckers.
Paige Beckers. She's just phenomenal. But I think even Gino, when I've heard him talk, says this is going to be really competitive this year in our league with Marquette and Creighton. And then he mentioned a couple other teams too, but he goes, especially those two are going to be right there. And when you look at the net rankings this year for women, they're all in the top 20, so we're all right there.
Sure.
And Creighton plays a unique style that I think other teams have a little bit of difficulty with. So. Yeah, I think you're gonna. I don't know. You'll see them get beat just because, gosh, when you have that much experience, you're that used to winning. You know how it goes. It's the old days when we played Villanova when they were at their peak. Man, it was just hard to beat them. You could have your best game, and somehow they found a way to win. And some respects, Creighton's kind of like that. Some games now too with teams, but it'll be interesting. But I think it'll be some hard-fought battles when UConn comes to town. But again, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock tip, 7:40. Yeah, it was great. It was great, the build-up to that Creighton game. Like, it was on Fox, advertised nonstop. They didn't have anything else going on around it, so that was their big game.
You're talking about Saturday night.
Yeah, last Saturday night. That was cool.
Kind of a little bit of a bummer for Omaha Central product. Latrell Wrightsell, he was in foul trouble kind of most of the night, so his minutes were a little bit limited, but probably a really cool deal for him, I would imagine, come back home.
Absolutely, and I'm sure
playing a game like that.
I'm sure there was a lot of nerves for him, too, coming back home,
What do you think of Grant Nelson? Obviously, seen him before at North Dakota State, but
yeah, he.
I mean, gosh, if he could develop a consistent three-point shot, he would be.
He didn't shoot the ball well.
Really, really
good. He's been shooting the ball pretty good, but he didn't shoot it well against us.
That's not necessarily his strength either.
They've just got a really good team. You just look at that team and go, God, how did they lose?
How in the world? I agree. I'm with you.
I forget who we had. Oh, we had Lewis, our coach on Saturday night.
Okay.
He said, I expect them to be one of the top
teams
seeds in the NCAA tournament. And he goes, I expect them Sweet 16 and probably beyond that. So,
well, the SEC is going to be a really fun league to track. I mean, you've got them, you've got Auburn, you've got Kentucky, you've got Tennessee, who are probably the best.
I would say Tennessee's probably the best team I've seen, although then they had a little bit of a swoon, but they're like Alabama. They played such a horrifically difficult schedule. My gosh.
Yeah, they have.
But I would say those two, and then maybe Kentucky's
after
good too. Them. Those three top, and A&M's not far behind.
Auburn. So then
A&M gave Houston everything they wanted the other day. And then Auburn, I would drop them down just a little. They're in there. Ole Miss is undefeated.
They are, but they're also. Did you see this? Ole Miss is ranked, but because they're undefeated. I think they're like 90th in KenPom.
Oh yeah, I saw that. They're better on the net overall, just because they've won a bunch of games. And then a team nobody's talking about, Florida. I was going through my whole list of bracketology teams today, and that was like one team that jumped out at me like, whoa, this is a team I didn't really notice. Again, there's so many teams right now that are 9-2, 8-3, 7-3 that you don't know until we get into conference play really how good they are. So yeah, it's not. I would say the SEC is not a league that has one big, wow, you got Kentucky and they're like number 2 in the country or anything like that. They've got a bunch of teams that could battle it out.
But Kentucky's, gosh, they're like 7th or 8th in the country.
Right. I'm not downplaying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they're not a juggernaut. Like I don't know if you're talking about Pac-12, you're talking Arizona, right?
Yeah.
You're talking Big Ten. You're talking Purdue. Even though there's great teams in the Big 12, you're not going to win that conference. So you take out Kansas. This is just the way it is. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So, that league and you really Big East is interesting as well.
I mean, you can make an argument. I've watched a lot of games to this point. Arizona is really, really good. Purdue is good, obviously very good. I think they're vulnerable. You can make an argument UConn's the best team in the country. From what I've seen.
Yeah.
They seem to be in that.
The way they dismantled Gonzaga was impressive to me.
I think Gonzaga team's not as good as last year, but still.
And it wasn't a home game for Gonzaga. It was
Right.
technically a neutral game, but still it was in Spokane. So that obviously helped rather than playing in the kennel. But, yeah, they just, when they walk into any arena this year, so it's going to be the game everybody circles. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that moving forward.
Do we have – I wonder UConn at home on a Saturday this year, or is it a weekday game?
Thought it was a weekday game.
Okay. I think you might be right.
Yeah. I think it's like a Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right because one of them and Marquette is a weekday game and one's a Saturday game, and I know for a fact that Marquette is a Saturday game.
Yeah,
senior
Saturday,
night.
Saturday next to last weekend of the year is Marquette. Yep. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for watching. This will be our last show of 2023. We're going to take a break here through the holidays, obviously, because we got Christmas, New Year's coming up, and then we'll probably even take that next Monday as a break because we'll be overlapping with a lot of post-game shows with the, we got one on that Saturday, for instance, with Providence. So thanks for joining us. We really, really, really appreciate all your support through the year 2023, and we look forward to a big 2024. Thanks so much. Be watching on Twitter at Bluejay Banter. We'll let you know on that, I think it's the 8th of January if we're going to have a show. I'm pretty sure we will because we kind of got to do a send-off for somebody that day, I think.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk more about that later. But thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you Wednesday night.